On a warm July evening in 1996, the quiet streets of Knoxville, Tennessee, became the stage for a chilling mystery that remains unsolved to this day. Robert Dennis Blair Adams, a 31-year-old Canadian construction worker, was found dead in a hotel parking lot under circumstances so bizarre they defy rational explanation. His death marked the end of a frantic, paranoia-fueled journey across continents, leaving investigators and armchair detectives grappling with questions that have no clear answers. What drove Blair Adams to flee his home in Surrey, British Columbia? Why did he behave so erratically in the days leading up to his death? And who or what was responsible for his brutal murder? Blair Adams was, by all accounts, an ordinary man. Born and raised in Surrey, a suburb of Vancouver, he had carved out a stable life working in construction for his stepfather's company. Described as friendly and hard-working, Blair was well-liked, with no known enemies or criminal ties. Yet beneath this unremarkable exterior, something was brewing. In the weeks before his death, those close to Blair noticed a shift in his demeanor. He became increasingly anxious, confiding in his mother, Sandra Edwards, that he felt someone was out to get him. He refused to elaborate, dismissing her concerns with vague assurances, but his unease was palpable. Friends reported that Blair seemed haunted, as though he were carrying a secret too heavy to share. The first concrete sign of Blair's unraveling came on July 5, 1996. Without warning, he quit his job, emptied his bank account, and withdrew the contents of his safe deposit box, amassing nearly $6,000 in cash, along with gold bars and jewelry valued at thousands more. This sudden liquidation of his assets was inexplicable. Blair had no apparent debts or financial troubles that would necessitate such a move. 2 days later, on July 7, he attempted to cross the United States and Canada border at the Pacific Highway border crossing into Washington state. Driving his 1989 Toyota Camry, Blair was alone, carrying his substantial cash and valuables. U.S. immigration officials, however, found his behavior suspicious. A single man traveling with such a large amount of money raised red flags, and after a search revealed the cash, gold, and jewelry, Blair was denied entry and turned back to Canada. Undeterred, Blair's actions grew more erratic. On July 8, he purchased a round-trip airline ticket from Vancouver to Frankfurt, Germany, for $1,600, a significant expense for a man who had just quit his job. The choice of Frankfurt was puzzling. Blair had no known connections to Germany, and the round-trip nature of the ticket suggested he planned to return soon. Yet, within hours of buying the ticket, he abandoned this plan entirely. Instead, he drove to Seattle, Washington, where he left his car at a rental agency and rented a Toyota Corolla. From there, he made his way to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport and purchased a one-way ticket to Washington, D.C. for $800. This impulsive decision left investigators baffled. Why would Blair spend so much on a transatlantic flight only to discard it for a cross-country trip? Blair's journey eastward was marked by a series of disjointed decisions. He arrived in Washington, but rather than staying in the city, he immediately rented another car, a white Nissan Altima, and drove 500 miles southwest to Knoxville, Tennessee. By this point, Blair's paranoia seemed to have intensified. Witnesses along his route reported that he appeared agitated, constantly looking over his shoulder as if expecting to be followed. In Knoxville, Blair's behavior became even more peculiar. On the evening of July 10, he stopped at a gas station and approached an attendant, claiming he was locked out of his car. The attendant, noticing that Blair was holding a set of keys, pointed this out, but Blair insisted they were the wrong keys. The attendant called a locksmith, who opened the car, only to discover that the keys Blair was holding did, in fact, belong to the Nissan Altima. This bizarre interaction suggested that Blair was either deeply confused or deliberately creating a pretext to draw attention to himself. Later that night, Blair checked into the Interstate Inn, a modest hotel near the Knoxville airport. He paid for a room but never entered it, leaving the key at the front desk. On $4,000 in cash, a fanny pack containing gold bars and jewelry, and a small bag with Canadian and German currency. Strangely, nothing appeared to have been stolen, ruling out robbery as a motive. The autopsy revealed additional details that only deepened the mystery. Blair's stomach contained traces of semen, suggesting he may have engaged in sexual activity shortly before his death. However, there was no evidence of sexual assault, and the coroner could not determine whether the encounter was consensual. Toxicology reports showed no drugs or alcohol in Blair's system, dispelling theories of substance-induced paranoia. The lack of defensive wounds on his hands, despite the brutal beating, suggested he may not have fought back or that he was caught off guard by someone he trusted. Investigators retraced Blair's final days, hoping to uncover a clue to his killer. They interviewed witnesses across multiple cities, from Vancouver to Knoxville, but found no one who could explain Blair's action. The gas station attendant in Knoxville described him as nervous and disoriented, while a waitress at a nearby diner recalled Blair ordering food but leaving abruptly without eating, claiming he was waiting for someone who never arrived. Hotel staff confirmed that Blair had checked in, but seemed restless, pacing the lobby before vanishing into the night. Each account painted a picture of a man consumed by fear, yet no one could identify what or who he was running from. Several theories emerged to explain Blair's death. One possibility was that his paranoia was rooted in a real threat. Perhaps Blair had stumbled into something dangerous, a business deal gone wrong, a debt to the wrong person, or even involvement with organized crime. His decision to liquidate his assets and flee could support this, but there was no evidence linking him to criminal activity. His stepfather, with whom he worked closely, insisted Blair's life was uneventful, and police found no record of threats or disputes. Another theory posited that Blair was suffering from a mental health crisis. His erratic behavior, cryptic statements, and apparent confusion at the gas station suggested a possible psychotic episode. However, Blair had no history of mental illness, and his family described him as stable until the weeks before his death. Today, the murder of Blair Adams remains one of Canada's most perplexing unsolved cases. True crime enthusiasts and podcasters have kept the story alive, dissecting its oddities: the abandoned Frankfurt ticket, the wrong key incident, the untouched valuables, and the inexplicable choice of Knoxville. Some believe Blair's paranoia was justified, that he was hunted by an unknown predator who tracked him across borders. Others argue his death was a tragic consequence of mental collapse, a random act of violence in a moment of vulnerability. Whatever the truth, Blair's final days stand as a haunting enigma, a journey that began with fear and ended in a lonely parking lot far from home. The case challenges our need for closure, reminding us that some mysteries resist explanation. Blair Adams took his secrets to the grave, leaving behind a puzzle that continues to baffle and intrigue. Until new evidence emerges, his story will remain a chilling testament to the fragility of life and the shadows that can consume it.